Honeymoon Assassins by Jansen Davies. Chapter 1. The Moon of No Ceremony. The stars blinked like ancient witnesses, silent and uninvited. No fanfare, no royal procession, no planetary broadcast, just two figures beneath the twin suns over a forgotten moon, one in ceremonial armor, the other in a gown stitched from starlight. Commander Christopher Tate stood tall, his posture forged by years of war and duty. His armor bore the insignia of the King's Guard, dulled by time and battle. Yet his eyes, those storm-gray eyes, softened as they met hers. Princess Marigold Voladi, heir to the Voladi throne, wore no crown. Her hair was snow-white and braided with silver threads, her lips trembling with joy and defiance. She had waited her entire life for this moment, not the ceremony, but the man. They had grown up together in the palace, two shadows chasing each other through marble halls and secret gardens. He had taught her how to wield a blade. She had taught him how to read poetry. Their bond was forged in laughter, sharpened by longing, and sealed in silence. Now, in the ruins of an ancient temple, they stood alone. The officiant was a blind monk who spoke only in riddles. He had no name, only a voice that whispered like wind through stone. Do you bind your soul to hers, knowing that love is the most dangerous vow? I do, Christopher said, his voice steady. And do you bind your soul to his, knowing that love is the most desired truth? I do, Marigold pledged. The monk placed two meteorite rings in their palms. Then let the stars bear witness. Let the silence be your choir. They kissed beneath the twin suns. It was not a kiss of royalty. It was a kiss of rebellion, of devotion, of war. Far above, in the palace of Voladi Prime, King Victor received the encrypted transmission. He read it twice. Married, he murmured. Of course they did. He had known since they were children. Christopher, the orphaned warrior with a heart too noble for politics. Marigold, the princess who never cared for crowns, only for the boy who guarded her dreams. Victor sighed. He had hoped for a royal wedding. The pomp, the spectacle, the alliances. Instead, he got love. He smiled. But love in the Voladi Empire was a dangerous thing. Already whispers stirred in the outer systems, cousins with ambition, pirates with scanners, mercenaries with nothing to lose. The princess had married. The heir was now possible. And someone, somewhere, had just placed a bounty on her head. Chapter 2. The Bounty. The stars hadn't cooled from their wedding night when the bounty went live. Encrypted, ruthless, galactic. Target, Princess Marigold Voladi. Status, married. Threat level, heir viable. Reward, 10 million credits. Dead only. It was transmitted in pulses across the outer systems, through pirate relays, mercenary guilds, and the shadow markets of the dead moons. No signature, no origin, just the unmistakable scent of royal blood in the water. Christopher saw it first. He was calibrating their stealth drive when the alert pinged his wrist console. The message was coded in the language of assassins, efficient, brutal, final. He didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He simply turned to Marigold, who was humming to herself as she packed their next destination's itinerary. She looked up. What is it? He showed her the message. Her breath caught. Not fear, not surprise, just the cold realization that love, in the Voladi Empire, was never free. They know, she said. They all know, he replied. Marigold sat down slowly, her fingers curling around the edge of the console. 10 million credits. That's enough to mobilize half the galaxy. Enough to wake the ones who never sleep, Christopher added. She looked at him. Do we run? He shook his head. We fight back. They activated Honeymoon protocol. It was a contingency plan buried deep in the King's Guard archives, designed for royal couples on their honeymoon and under threat. Few ever used it. Fewer survived it. The protocol included decoy ships, identical vessels scattered across star lanes, each broadcasting false biometric data, false identities forged by palace cryptographers, complete with fabricated histories and planetary visas, emergency extraction points, hidden coordinates known only to the Guard's elite. Christopher initiated the sequence. Their current ship, the Whispering Bride, would be abandoned within the hour. Their next vessel, Ghostlight, awaited in orbit around a derelict asteroid. Marigold watched him work. "You've always been ready for this." "I was never ready for you to be hunted with a reward on your head," he said. She touched his cheek. "Then let's make them regret it." The first bounty hunter arrived before they even left orbit. A cloaked skimmer drifted into range, silent as a prayer. Its pilot was masked, its weapons primed. Christopher detected the approach milliseconds before the attack. He fired the ship's countermeasures. The skimmer dodged. Plasma bolts lit the sky. Marigold took the helm while Christopher manned the turret. The hunter was fast, too fast for a standard mercenary. This one was trained. Royal blood, perhaps. Or worse, ex-guard. Christopher locked onto the skimmer's heat signature and fired. Direct hit. The skimmer exploded in a bloom of blue fire, scattering debris across the moon's atmosphere. Marigold exhaled. "That was the first." Christopher nodded. "There will be more." Far away in the palace of Voladi Prime, King Victor stared at the bounty alert. He didn't ask who sent it. He already knew. The throne was surrounded by wolves, and now they had scented the air. Victor closed his eyes and whispered a prayer, not to the gods of the Empire, but to the stars themselves. "Protect them," he said. "Let love be stronger than death." Chapter 3. Honeymoon Protocol. The stars had barely shifted when Christopher initiated the failsafe. Marigold watched from the co-pilot's seat as he keyed in the sequence. 12 digits, no hesitation. The console blinked once, then went dark. A moment later, a new interface emerged, black and gold, marked with the sigil of the King's Guard. Honeymoon Protocol. It was a relic from the Empire's paranoid past, designed for royal unions under threat. Christopher's voice was calm, but his eyes were storm-lit. "We're abandoning the Whispering Bride. She's already flagged in the bounty networks." Marigold nodded. "Where do we go?" "Ghostlight," he said. "A stealth-class vessel docked on a derelict asteroid in the Tyrellian Drift. No registry, no trace." Marigold leaned back, her fingers brushing the meteorite ring on her hand. So much for spontaneous romance. Christopher glanced at her. "We'll make it spontaneous. Just with fewer assassins." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Their escape from the moon was surgical. Christopher rerouted the ship's transponder to mimic a diplomatic courier. Marigold activated a decoy beacon, broadcasting false biometric data. By the time bounty hunters arrived, the Whispering Bride was already drifting toward a sun, empty and burning. They slipped into the drift under cloak, navigating through asteroid fields and magnetic storms. The Ghostlight awaited, sleek, silent, and deadly. It had no windows, no insignia, just a hull designed to vanish. Inside, the ship was Spartan, 2 sleeping pods, 1 weapons locker, a console with encrypted channels, and a small viewport that showed nothing but black. Marigold sat on the edge of the bunk. "This is our honeymoon." Christopher joined her. "This is our war." They plotted a new itinerary, one designed to confuse, mislead, and survive. Each destination was chosen for its unpredictability. Each one carried risk. Marigold traced the map with her finger. "We'll be hunted at every stop." Christopher nodded. "But they won't know which stop we'll die on." She looked at him. "You think we'll die?" He didn't answer. That night they lay together in the silence of the ghost light. Marigold whispered stories from their childhood, how they used to sneak into the royal kitchens, how Christopher once fought off a palace hawk to save her favorite cat, how they used to dream of escaping together. Christopher listened, his hand resting on the hilt of his blade. "I used to think love was the safest place," she said. He turned to her. "It is. That's why they want to destroy it." She kissed him, slow and fierce. "Then let's make it indestructible." Outside, in the void, a cloaked skimmer drifted into range. The hunt had begun. Chapter 4. The First Strike. Tyrelia was supposed to be safe. The floating gardens orbited a sapphire gas giant, suspended on anti-grav platforms that drifted like petals in space. Each garden was a biome, lush, fragrant, and engineered for serenity. Royal couples had honeymooned here for centuries. No weapons, no politics, just beauty. Christopher didn't trust it. He scanned the perimeter as they docked the ghost light beneath a canopy of bioluminescent vines. Marigold stepped out first, her gown catching the light like a comet's tail. She smiled at the scent of pollen and the soft hum of gravity fields. "It's beautiful," she said. Christopher didn't answer. His hand rested on the hilt of his blade. They walked the garden paths in silence, passing through zones of rare flora, singing orchids, memory moss, and whispering trees that mimicked voices. Marigold paused beside a bloom that pulsed with light. "It remembers me," she said. Christopher turned. "How?" "I visited once as a child. With my mother. She died here." He stepped closer. "I didn't know. She loved this place. Said it was the only world that didn't want anything from her." Christopher looked around. "It wants something now." The sky turned red, a ripple in the atmosphere, a distortion. Then 3 figures descended in hoversuits, silent, masked, armed with plasma darts. Christopher moved before the first shot was fired. He tackled Marigold behind a thorn wall, drawing his blade in one fluid motion. The assassins split formation, flanking from above. One fired. The dart missed by inches, searing the bark beside Marigold's head. Christopher leapt. He landed on the first assassin midair, driving his blade through the hoversuit's chest plate. Sparks flew. The body dropped into a carnivorous bloom, which hissed and closed around it. The second assassin fired a volley. Christopher deflected with his blade, spinning into a low strike that severed the attacker's leg. The scream was muffled by the helmet. The body fell into a pool of memory moss, which began to whisper its last thoughts. The third assassin hesitated. Marigold stood. She held a thorn pistol, illegal, ancient, and deadly. She fired once. The dart pierced the assassin's visor. He staggered, choking, and collapsed. Christopher approached the body. The assassin was still alive, barely. "Who sent you?" he demanded. The assassin coughed blood. 10 million, he rasped. "Dead only." Then he died. They burned the bodies in a pollen cave. Marigold sat beside the fire, her hands trembling. "I killed someone." Christopher knelt beside her. "You saved us." She looked at him. "I didn't hesitate." "You're learning." She stared into the flames. "What if I become like them?" He touched her cheek. "You won't. You have me." Above the garden, the ghost light waited. Its sensors detected 5 more ships entering orbit. The hunt was accelerating. Chapter 5. The Heir Question. The ghost light drifted silently through the Tyrellian drift, its hull cloaked in magnetic shadow. Inside, the air was still, thick with pollen residue and the scent of scorched metal. Marigold sat cross-legged on the floor of the sleeping chamber, her hands resting on her stomach. She hadn't spoken in hours. Christopher watched her from the doorway, his armor half removed, his blade resting on the console beside him. He knew the silence wasn't grief. It was calculation. She finally spoke. "What if I'm already pregnant?" The words landed like a seismic charge. Christopher didn't move. His mind raced through timelines, bloodlines, succession laws, and the bounty's implications. A male heir would solidify Marigold's claim to the throne. It would also double the bounty, maybe triple it. He stepped into the room. "We don't know." "I know," she said softly. "I feel it." He knelt beside her. "We can scan." "We have the tech." She shook her head. "Not yet. Not until we're safe." He nodded. "Then we stay in motion." She looked at him, eyes wide and ancient. "If I die, the heir dies with me." "You won't die." "You can't promise that." "I can kill anyone who tries." She touched his face. "That's not the same." They rerouted their itinerary. Raylos was no longer a romantic detour. It was a strategic refuge. The ice fields had caverns deep enough to hide a ship, and aurora storms strong enough to scramble scans. It was also where Christopher had trained during his exile from the palace, a place of silence, survival, and ghosts. Marigold studied the map. "You think we'll be safe there?" "No," he said, "but we'll be invisible." She traced the route with her finger. "And after Raylos?" "Lirel," he said. "The temple ruins." She raised an eyebrow. "You believe in the old gods now?" "I believe in places no one dares follow." That night, Christopher stood alone in the weapons bay, calibrating the ghost light's defense grid. He thought of the child, not as a symbol, not as a threat, but as a possibility, a son or a daughter, with Marigold's fire and his discipline, a future that didn't belong to the throne, but to something older, something sacred. He whispered a vow to the stars. "If you exist, I will protect you, even if I have to burn the galaxy down." In the sleeping chamber, Marigold dreamed of her mother. She stood in the Terrelia Gardens, surrounded by singing orchids. Her mother reached out, smiling, and whispered, "Love is the only throne that matters." Marigold woke with tears on her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. Chapter 6. The Cousin's Gambit. Raylos shimmered like a frozen god. Its surface was a tapestry of ice storms and aurora flares, a world where silence reigned and light danced like memory. Beneath its crust lay caverns older than the Voladi Empire, places where warriors trained, secrets slept, and ghosts whispered in frost. Christopher guided the ghost light into a hidden crevasse, shielded by magnetic interference and glacial mist. Marigold watched the auroras ripple across the sky, her breath fogging the viewport. "It's beautiful," she said. "It's dangerous," he replied. She smiled. "So are we." They were greeted by Lord Horrell Voladi, Marigold's cousin, third in line to the throne, a man with too much charm and too little conscience. He arrived in a skimmer draped in royal sigils, flanked by guards in ceremonial cloaks. His smile was warm, his eyes were calculating. "Marigold," he said, embracing her, "you look radiant." "Marriage suits you." Christopher didn't move. Horrell turned to him. "Commander Tate." "Still brooding, I see." Christopher's hand hovered near his blade. "Still breathing, I see." Horrell laughed. "Come, let us toast to love." They gathered in a crystalline chamber carved into the ice. Horrell poured wine from a decanter etched with Voladi runes. Marigold sipped cautiously. Christopher didn't touch his glass. Horrell raised his cup. "To the Newlyweds. May your union be strong, your heir be swift, and your enemies be slow." Marigold's smile faltered. "You know about the bounty." "Of course," Horel said. "Everyone knows, but I'm family. I would never harm you." Christopher leaned forward. "Then why did your guards scan our ship?" Horel's smile cracked. "Precaution. You understand." Christopher stood. "We're leaving." Horel didn't stop them. He simply tossed a knife. Christopher caught it midair. The blade was poisoned, ancient, designed to paralyze. He drove it through Horel's shoulder. Horel laughed, blood staining his cloak. "You think I'm the only one?" The chamber exploded in chaos. Horel's guards shed their cloaks, revealing plasma rifles and bounty sigils. They weren't guards. They were hunters. Christopher moved like a storm, disarming, disabling, destroying. Marigold fired a cryoblaster, freezing one attacker mid-lunge. The ice shattered. The body fell. They escaped through a tunnel of frost, pursued by echoes and fire. Outside, the auroras burned red. Christopher activated the Ghost Light's emergency thrusters. Marigold collapsed into the co-pilot's seat, her hands shaking. "He was family," she said. "He was a threat," Christopher replied. She looked at him. "How many more?" He didn't answer. Far below, in the ruins of the crystalline chamber, Horel lay bleeding. He smiled through the pain. "They'll never make it to Lorel," he whispered. "The temple will bury them." Then he closed his eyes and dreamed of crowns. Chapter 7. The Temple of Echoes. The Temple of Echoes was older than the Voladi Empire. It stood on the moon of Lorel, carved into obsidian cliffs that sang when the wind passed through. No one ruled it. No one claimed it. Pilgrims came to forget. Warriors came to remember. And those who were hunted came to disappear. Christopher guided the ghost light into a ravine veiled by magnetic storms. The temple emerged from the mist like a memory, its spires jagged, its walls inscribed with languages no longer spoken. Marigold stepped out first. The ground beneath her feet pulsed faintly, as if the moon itself recognized her blood. Inside, the temple was silent. Not empty, just listening. Every footstep echoed, but not in sound, in feeling. The walls shimmered with residual emotion, grief, hope, betrayal, love. Marigold touched a column and gasped. It whispered her name. Christopher drew his blade instinctively. What did it say? She turned to him, eyes wide. It said, "Mother." He stepped closer. "Your mother died on Tyrelia." "She visited here first," Marigold said. "She left something behind." They ventured deeper. The temple's heart was a chamber of mirrors, not glass, but polished obsidian that reflected not appearance, but memory. Christopher saw himself as a boy, training in the palace courtyard. Marigold saw herself as a child, watching him from a balcony, clutching a flower she never gave him. Then the mirrors changed. Christopher saw blood. Marigold saw fire. Both saw a child, newborn, crying, wrapped in a cloak of stars. They stepped back. A voice filled the chamber, not spoken, echoed. "The child will be born in fire, and the throne will burn." A figure emerged from the shadows, a seer, genderless, ageless, eyes like eclipses. "You seek refuge," the seer said, "but refuge is a lie. Only transformation is real." Christopher stepped forward. "Will we survive?" The seer tilted their head. "Survival is not the question. Legacy is." Marigold touched her stomach. "Is the child real?" The seer smiled. "The child is already echoing." Christopher's grip tightened. "What must we do?" "Leave nothing behind," the seer said. "Not even your names." They slept in the temple that night. Marigold dreamed of fire, not destruction but rebirth. A throne melting into soil, a crown blooming into flowers, a child laughing beneath twin suns. Christopher dreamed of silence, deep, sacred, and unbreakable, a blade laid down, a war that ended not in victory, but in mercy. When they woke, the seer was gone, but the echoes remained. Outside, the bounty hunters waited. They had tracked the ghost light's magnetic trail. They had surrounded the ravine. They had weapons, numbers, and orders. Christopher and Marigold stepped out of the temple, cloaked in silence. The wind sang, and the hunt resumed. Chapter 8. The Assassin Bride. The Temple of Echoes had given them silence, but silence, Christopher knew, was never permanent. They left Lirel under cloak, the ghost light drifting through the magnetic veil like a forgotten prayer. Marigold sat in the co-pilot's seat, her hand resting on her stomach. She hadn't spoken since the seer's prophecy. The child is already echoing. Christopher didn't press. He simply watched the stars, blade across his lap, waiting for the next betrayal. It arrived in white. On the moon of Sorel, they docked for supplies, water, fuel, encrypted data. The outpost was abandoned, save for one figure waiting in the docking bay. She wore a ceremonial gown, white silk, no armor, no weapons visible. "I'm here to officiate your wedding," she said. Christopher stepped forward, blade half drawn. "We're already married," she smiled. "Then I'm here to bless the union." Marigold narrowed her eyes. "Who sent you?" The woman bowed. "No one. I came for the bounty, but I changed my mind." Christopher didn't lower his blade. "Why?" She looked at Marigold. "Because you're already hunted, and you're still standing." Her name was Sarah, former assassin, trained in the shadow monasteries of Vaughn. She had killed kings, seduced generals, and vanished entire bloodlines. She had come for Marigold's head. But something had shifted. "I watched you in the temple," she said. "You didn't beg. You didn't run. You listened." Marigold studied her. "You believe in the prophecy?" "I believe in echoes," Sarah replied. Christopher didn't trust her, but he didn't kill her. Instead, he offered her a choice. "Loyalty or exile?" Sarah smiled. "I choose loyalty." She became their shadow. She rewired the ghost light's defense grid. She mapped bounty hunter routes. She taught Marigold how to move like a ghost, how to vanish in plain sight, how to kill without regret. Marigold learned quickly. Christopher watched from the weapons bay, blade in hand, heart conflicted. "She's dangerous," he said. "She's necessary," Marigold replied. "She's not like us." "She's exactly like us." That night, Sarah stood watch while Christopher and Marigold slept. She whispered to the stars, "I was born to kill." "But I choose to protect." The stars didn't answer, but the ghost light hummed in agreement. Chapter 9. The King's Message. The transmission arrived in silence, encrypted, royal, unmistakable. Christopher decoded it in the ghost light's war room, his fingers steady, his breath held. The signal was old, buried beneath layers of palace encryption, the kind only a king could send. Victor Voladi, Marigold's father, ruler of the Voladi Empire, the man who had once taught Christopher how to wield a blade, how to read a battlefield, how to protect what mattered. The message was short. "I'm sorry. I should have protected you. Come home." No coordinates, no signature. Just a voice, tired, fading, and full of regret. Christopher played it twice. Marigold entered the room, her eyes already knowing. "He's dying," she said. Christopher nodded. "And the palace is compromised." Marigold sat beside him. "Then we go back." Christopher hesitated. "It's a trap." She touched his hand. "It's our home." Sarah didn't argue. She recalibrated the ghost light's stealth drive, rerouted their course through the shattered moons of Vaughn, and prepared for planetary descent. Her face was unreadable, her loyalty absolute. "I'll get you in," she said, "but I won't be able to get you out." Christopher nodded. "We'll find our own way." Marigold looked at both of them. "We're not escaping anymore. We're reclaiming." Voladi Prime shimmered in the distance, a planet of marble towers, golden spires, and shadowed corridors. The palace sat at its heart like a crown, beautiful, brittle, and bleeding. Christopher guided the ghost light into a forgotten hangar beneath the royal gardens. Sarah vanished into the shadows, her mission clear: disable the palace's bounty grid and intercept any transmissions. Marigold walked the garden paths in silence. She remembered every flower, every fountain, every lie. They reached the king's chamber at midnight. Victor lay in a bed of star-lace sheets, his skin pale, his breath shallow. He smiled when he saw them. "My daughter," he whispered. "My son." Marigold knelt beside him. "We came." Victor touched her cheek. "You must take the throne. Together." Christopher stood guard, eyes scanning the chamber for threats. Victor's voice was fading. "They will come for you. Cousins, generals, ghosts. But the throne is not theirs. It is yours." Marigold leaned close. "We're not ready." Victor smiled. "No one ever is." Then he closed his eyes, and the Empire shifted. Chapter 10. The Final Hunt. The palace was no longer a sanctuary. It was a battlefield dressed in marble. Christopher stood in the royal garden, blade drawn, armor gleaming beneath the twin moons. Marigold stood beside him, her gown torn, her eyes clear. The king was dead. The throne was unclaimed. And the wolves had arrived. A fleet of bounty hunters descended from orbit, cloaked skimmers, warships bearing cousin sigils, corrupted royal guards who had once sworn loyalty and now sold it for 10 million credits. Sarah returned from the shadows, blood on her hands, her cloak smoking. "The bounty grid is down," she said, "but they're already inside." Christopher nodded. "Then we fight." The first wave came through the eastern gate. Christopher met them head-on, his blade a blur, his movements almost supernatural. He fought like a myth, like a man who had trained for this moment his entire life. One by one the hunters fell. Plasma bolts missed, blades shattered, bodies dropped. Marigold activated the palace's defense matrix, rerouting power from the throne room to the outer walls. She moved like a queen, not ceremonial, but tactical. She sealed corridors, triggered traps, and rerouted escape paths. Sarah took the western wing, her dagger singing through the air. She killed without hesitation, without remorse. But she bled. She died, saving Marigold. A plasma bolt meant for the princess struck Sarah in the chest. She smiled as she fell. "Echo," she whispered. "Protect the Echo." Then she was gone. Christopher roared, not in rage, in grief. He tore through the remaining hunters, his blade glowing with kinetic fury. The corrupted guards hesitated. Some fled, others begged. He spared none. Marigold reached the throne room. It was empty. She stepped onto the dais, her hand resting on the armrest. The throne shimmered, gold and obsidian, carved with the names of every ruler before her. She didn't sit. She activated the core. The palace trembled. Outside, Christopher dragged the last surviving cousin into the garden. Lord Grenell Voladi, bleeding, laughing. "You think you've won," Grenell spat. "The throne will never be yours." Christopher dropped him. "It already is." Grenell looked up. "She's pregnant, isn't she?" Christopher didn't answer. Grenell smiled. "Then the real war begins." Marigold stepped into the garden. She held a crown in her hands, not gold, not jeweled, forged from meteorite. She placed it on her head, and the empire shook. Chapter 11. The Throne Room. The palace was quiet, not the silence of defeat, but the silence of aftermath, thick, sacred, and waiting. Christopher stood in the throne room, armor scorched, blade sheathed. The marble floor was stained with blood and ash. The golden spires outside flickered in the dawn light, casting long shadows across the dais. Marigold entered slowly. She wore no crown, no gown, just a cloak of star lace and the weight of legacy. The throne shimmered before her, obsidian and gold, carved with the names of rulers who had died for less. It was not a seat. It was a crucible. She didn't sit. She placed her hand on the armrest. The throne pulsed. A holographic seal activated, ancient, royal, and irrevocable. The palace systems recalibrated. The bounty grid dissolved. The succession protocols realigned. Marigold Voladi was now sovereign. But she didn't speak. She turned to Christopher, her eyes full of storm and sunrise. "We're not rulers," she said. "We're guardians." He stepped forward. "Then let's guard something worth dying for." She smiled. "Or worth living for." They buried Sarah in the royal garden. No ceremony, no crowd, just two stones, one meteorite, one obsidian, and a whisper. "She chose loyalty," Marigold said. Christopher nodded. "She chose legacy." The palace began to change. The corrupted guards fled or surrendered. The remaining cousins vanished into exile. The bounty hunters scattered, their contracts voided, their reputations shattered. But the people remained. They emerged from hiding, from silence, from fear. They saw the new queen not as a symbol, but as a survivor, a fighter, a mother, and they followed. In the Temple of Echoes, the seer watched the stars. "The throne did not burn," they whispered. "It bloomed." Epilogue. Echo. The palace was quiet again. Not the silence of aftermath, but the silence of peace. In the royal nursery, beneath a dome of starlight and whispering vines, a child slept. His name was Echo Voladi, born beneath twin moons, swaddled in a cloak of meteorite silk. His heartbeat pulsed like prophecy. Marigold watched him from the threshold, her crown set aside, her hands bare. She had ruled for 10 months. She had survived war, betrayal, and prophecy, but nothing had prepared her for motherhood. Christopher entered quietly, his blade finally retired, his armor sealed in the vault below the throne room. He carried a data pad, reports from the outer systems, whispers of peace treaties, rumors of bounty hunters turning to guardianship. He set it down. "He's dreaming," Marigold said. Christopher smiled. "Of what?" She looked at their son. "Of stars, of silence, of a world that doesn't want anything from him." Christopher stepped beside her. "Then we'll build him that world." Outside, the Voladi Empire began to change. The throne was no longer a symbol of dominance. It was a promise. The bounty networks dissolved. The cousins vanished into obscurity. The people returned to the gardens, the temples, the stars. And in the Temple of Echoes, the seer carved a new name into the obsidian wall. Echo Voladi, born of fire, guardian of silence. Sarah's grave bloomed with memory moss. It whispered her final vow to every traveler who passed. "I was born to kill. I chose to protect." Her legend grew. Assassin turned martyr. Blade turned shield. Children in the outer moons wore white cloaks in her honor. Marigold sat beside Echo's crib, humming a lullaby her mother once sang. Christopher watched them both, his heart full of storm and sunrise. They had survived the hunt. They had rewritten the myth. And now they would raise a child who echoed not fear, but love. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.